So we can start with the first slide. So at the age of 16, I decided I wanted to be a waiter and worked on a beautiful boat called the France, which was the embassy of France. Unfortunately, the boat went to retire, and I ended up being an apprentice cook at the Plaza Hotel in Nice. So I was learning how to cook during the day, and in the afternoon, because I worked double shift, you know, a few hours in the morning, a few hours in the afternoon. And then I used to go to school in the afternoon, and that's when I got my degree after 2 years. I graduated from the culinary school of Nice with honor and with English as well. I was one of the only students that wanted to learn English. So that's interesting. When I was 18, I had applied everywhere and I wanted to move to London. So I moved to London in 1975 after I graduated. I started cooking in 1973. So 75, I worked at the Savoy in London. That was, we were 2 different brigades, you know. We had 18 cooks in the morning and 18 cooks at night. Yeah, yeah, and we only work with silver. We never work with plate. So everything we did, I was in the fish section, so when we had, you probably heard the word in French, garde-manger, it's a guy who keeps the food, you know. So somebody would call it like a lobster, so we get a lobster, somebody brings you the lobster live, and then we had to kill the lobster, you know, and do a lobster thermidor, for instance, and stuff like that. But everything we were doing was served on silver tray. We had a long table like that, and then the waiter were, of course, waiting for the food, and then they were and they're doing inspection of the food. Make sure the food was right by the sous chef, and then he would go. We had a famous thing that you probably, some of you know about it or not. We had something called the blue trout. The trout au bleu, maybe Bob, you know that, I don't know. We used to have live trout in the kitchen. So what we do, we take the trout, bang on the back of the head, and then take the guts out and throw it in the water with a lot of vinegar, and the trout will turn blue. You know what's viscous on it? So if you want to try it, just boil some water, put vinegar and salt, and you will see your trout is going to be blue like your shirt. Blue is not a color of meat, right? You know that. You know, Alfred Hitchcock one time did a big dinner, and everything in the dinner was blue, and nobody could eat. You don't eat blue. Anyway, at my time at the Savoy in London, of course, we had Princess Margaret. Charlie Chaplin used to live there, you know, and Frank Sinatra was there too. But again, we never had it. In all my career, I did so many years in hotel business, we never ever had contact with the guests. You know, we were at the back of the house, a little bit like the British comedy. You know, you had the back of the house and the front of the house. Next one. And then I was, of course, a crazy skier. So when I came back from London, after almost a year, I decided that I was going to be working in the Alps, you know, in a small resort, and I had found a job on a newspaper. They had 9 rooms, and it was fantastic because it was next to the ski lift. So I used to cook lunch with my ski boots. I did. And between the order, or if it was very slow, I just used to go from here to the parking lot. I used to go with my ski boots, put my ski on, and do like 1 run or 2, and then go back. Sometimes they were waving, you know, like, we have a customer. I had a fabulous time with those people. It's a very nice little hotel with 9 rooms, and mostly they were serving stuff like fondue, raclette. You guys know what's raclette? The cheese that you melt with the potato. I love that. And very basic food, you know, compared to what I was doing at the Savoy, you know, in London, of course. You know. And then, well, they called me for the army, you know. We had to, not anymore in France, but we had to spend exactly 1 year in the military. So I did 2 months of class. And I was in a military, of the ski military, so we were wearing all white ski, white clothes, and we could see us, we couldn't see the other people either. Because everything was white. And of course, after 2 months, since I was a cook, they said, well, you're going to be in a mess. You know, I always been in a mess, but I was an officer mess, so I was cooking for the officer. Basically, I had a good life, you know. The rest of the people were, you know, doing military time, you know, doing this. I was only cooking for the officer. So for 10 months, I had a pretty good time. I was up in a town called Briançon. I'm sorry, but the C has a little hyphen on it, because otherwise you would say Briançon in French, but it's Briançon. It's a military town that was built by Vauban, who was a military guy in France from the royalty, and he had a lot of different aspects in the city. But it's a city that gets a lot of snow, Briançon. I think if you ever go there, it's a beautiful medieval city. And then you just border about 10 miles from Italy, where you have the Italian Mont Genèvre, and then you go down to Milan and Torino on the other side of the Alps, you know. And so if we wear the uniform, which was great, we could ski for free everywhere. You know, it was kind of fun. We had free ski pass. I had a very, very fun memory of that, and I'm still in touch with 1 or 2 guys from that time. That was a long time ago. So when I came back, in fact, I was just there. I was looking for a job, and I'm going to tell you the story about this place. And then so I went to so you have the word in French, charcuterie. We were talking about charcuterie. The word charcuterie comes in French from the guy who's called a charcutier. It's a guy who only makes like pâté, terrine. He's going to make a sausage, he's going to make a head cheese, all the stuff like that. It's really a profession. So anyway, I knew a charcutier that used to cater to that castle. So I went to see him, and he says, well, you know, I have somebody, maybe they hire you. So he gave me a phone call, and I went to see Madame Varsano, which she was a Russian lady, and they gave me the job. My bedroom was when you see this window on the right, I was right at the bottom there. And I used to sleep by myself in that big castle. So let me tell you a little bit about the Varsano. It's an interesting story. Maurice was a Jewish guy from North Africa. And in the 60s, of course, after we lost the colony, he had to go back to France, you know. 1.5 million of those people came back to France after we lost Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, I mean, all those colonies. But anyway, he made his fortune because he was a guy that loved women, and they always had the stocking, and the stocking, they would break down, you know. So he found a way to have ladies to fix the stocking. So in every tobacco, in Algeria, somewhere, the woman would drop the stocking, and 2 days later they pick it up. This is how he started his money, you know, making money. He became very rich with that, and he had a company called Navigel, and then bought a company called Sucre and Denrées, which in French means sugar. And here is a story about him. America was in a boycott completely with Cuba. And America, in the beginning of the 70s, did not have any sugar. So all the sugar was coming from Fidel Castro. Of course, Maurice was very smart. He would buy all the sugar from Fidel Castro and sell back to the Americans. So he was stuck on fortune in France, you know. But he made extremely a lot of money selling sugar. And he went into the food business. And his company called Navigel is still very big in France, you know. She was Russian. They were very interesting people because they were so well off that they had this place where they come maybe once a month. And then they had one in Normandy with the staff too. They had cooks and chauffeur everywhere. They had all the staff. And they had one place in Paris, they had an apartment in New York, and one in Rio de Janeiro. And so my job was to cook all the way to about 8 people, you know. Because more than that, I mean, Bob Scott would have loved it, everything was silver. We had silver everywhere. And we had one table that came from England. I still remember. It was as long from here to the door there. And we could seat like 25 people, 30 people at that table. But I never did all those big catering. When we had catering like that, you know, we hired a company, the charcutier.
Oh, okay.
He would come up with a crew and everything, because it was too much. I could not do that, you know. But one time we had a huge party, you know. I mean, everybody was there. The Prince of Monaco, I mean, the sister of the Queen, the sister of the King of Italy. I mean, the police was everywhere. I was like a penguin. I was wearing like a suit, you know, a tuxedo. And I'm standing at the door there greeting the people with a lady called Janet, you know. It was fantastic. And we were greeting the people, you know. And suddenly come these guys, you know, he has a hole in his pants, you know, and, you know, he's smoking like a doobie, you know. I think you're coming to the wrong place. Just looked at us and says, I am Caesar the sculptor. I was like, I'm sorry, please come in, you know. Yeah, very, very different, strange type of people coming in, but it was all money, you know. That place, I mean, Donna, you saw it, you know. Donna came with me in France. It's next to a town called Beaulieu-sur-Mer, which is very close to Monte Carlo. It's one of the richest real estate in the world. One of the house from the King of Belgium sold for $800 million. You know? So you can see what the real estate is. But it's right there on those rocks facing the Mediterranean. The minute you go 2 miles inland where my family lives, we're very poor. We don't have that kind of money.
So ask if they can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, it's good. So in 1979, I got a visa and I got a job, and I came to Washington, D.C. In a French restaurant called La Chaumière. That is, look, I don't know if you know Washington, but it's on 28th and M Street in Georgetown. We were working morning and night, so I was working from like 10 o'clock in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, and then we come back at night. You don't have a life. Go back at night at 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock, you know. And we did that 5 days a week. Saturday only dinner, Sunday closed. But we did really, really French traditional food. I mean, things like duck à l'orange, you know, nobody's gonna eat that. Calf brain, you know. We were doing cassoulet, bouillabaisse, you know, all the, you know, every day of the week we will do the same special on the same day of the week. So, you know, we have tons of people that used to come to us. It was an interesting place, you know. I learned a lot. I used to live in Georgetown, so I used to ride my bicycle in the morning, go to the seafood market like 2 or 3 times a week, pick up myself the food I wanted, and then they would bring it to me. So it was really like some a little bit like from the farm to the table, or from the fishing dock to the table. I mean, and it was back east, so we had stuff that maybe, is anybody from back east here? You know, we used to have the shad roe, we used to have the bluefish, we used to have the soft-shell crab, there was some, and then I forgot the name of those fur that you eat from Boston.
Fiddlehead.
Fiddlehead, which, you know, there is quite some cuisine that later I learned more when I lived in Boston, because the food, I mean, they had food and they had culture in some of the food, you know. It was a very interesting time. I spent 4 years there. And I became, after 2 years, I became the head chef of the place.
Wow.
You know? And in the same time I was there, because at the beginning I worked only night, and then in the morning I worked in a French restaurant right across from the White House called La Maison Blanche, the French White House. So I used to work there during the day, and you know, we used to do 150 lunches. It was all government people, you know. And it was very interesting because, you know, we opened exactly at noon, and by 2 o'clock everybody was gone because they had to go back to the office, you know. But it was an interesting city. But I thought to myself, I said, you know, you've been here 4 years, maybe it's time to go west. So we go to the next slide. So there is a slide I'm missing here because I went west to San Diego for 1 year. I met a gentleman that was opening the Intercontinental Hotel. Now, if you know the Fisherman's Wharf, there is two big towers. That's one of those towers. Now it's a Marriott, but it used to be the Intercontinental Hotel. And they had one tower at the time, and we had 5 restaurants. And I was the chef in 2 of the restaurants. One called Maison Anne-Marie, it was a French restaurant. And then we had an Asian restaurant. And the only one who had along with the Asian chef, because he didn't speak English, was me. Because we had the stove. I don't know if you've seen a Chinese stove. You have pedal on your knees to move the water in a fire. So you can move like that for the water, or you move like that on the wok. Yeah, it's very interesting because you have water running if you need to, and then you can get the fire going a little bit stronger. But I was the only one who can get along with it. And how I got that job is very funny because I went to see Yves at, that was before that. I went to see him and he says, who do you know in Washington, blah, blah, blah. Well, I said, I know Pierre Chambrun, he's a chef. In fact, he was a chef at the White House after I left. So he called the White House and told them, and they said, you got to hire him right away, don't let him go. So I got a job right away, and I stayed at the Intercontinental for 1 year. After 1 year, I still wanted more adventure. The Ritz-Carlton company, which was the Ritz in Boston, the Ritz, okay, you have the name, the Ritz that, yeah, you can just go back one. You had the Ritz in Paris still on everything that is named Ritz-Carlton. So like we have the Ritz Cracker, the Ritz Camera, everybody is paying a fee to the Ritz. You know, if you know the story about Cesar Ritz, the Cesar Ritz was from Switzerland and Auguste Escoffier was French. The two of them together created an empire in hotel. You have the Ritz in Paris, you have the Ritz in London, and so the company I worked for was a family of that. I was opened by them in Boston. So the name, the Ritz-Carlton, was bought in America for America, but they only can use the name if it's not, like in Spain, you have a Ritz in Spain, so they had to open a hotel with a different name. So I went to the Ritz-Carlton, I got a job, you know, when I got the reference from Yves, I went there and he was like, wow, you got a job right away. And so we had 5 restaurants, we were 120 in the kitchen. We were doing a volume, and I'm talking to you, in 1985, we did $22 million in food. Food only, not beverage. It was huge. It was huge. For 1 year. We did $22 million in food in 1 year, which was a lot of volume, you know. And you know, mostly when I started there, I worked at the cafe. Basically, we did about 300 to 400 lunch, and then 300 to 400 dinner. Sunday brunch, we would do 600 to 1,000. But remember, we had, just to do that, we have 20 people in the kitchen. You have people doing the cold, you have people doing the hot, you have people making sure the buffet line is always clean, you know, everybody gets enough shrimp, you know, it's like, you know, I can tell you a story about buffet, like, I mean, people die at buffet. I've seen people die. They eat 2 pounds shrimp. Yeah, I saw a guy had 2 pounds shrimp, and he collapsed like that. And so his wife said, is he going to be okay? I mean, he died.
Oh, wow.
Everybody else was like, oh, more shrimp for us. No. And he said, but honestly, people don't realize, you know, when you eat so much food. But people would pile up, like we had lobster with shrimp. You know, it was, at the time, it was $50 a person. I'm talking to you 30 years ago.
And that was
40
then?
years ago.
Wow.
It was a lot of money. If you're like 120, 140 right now. And people say, well, since I'm here, I'm going to have 2 pounds of shrimp. You know? But anyway, it's very funny because I went through a different stage there. So I started as in a cafe where we did all those volume, and then I was a banquet chef. I did all the banquets. So we used to do banquet like crazy. I don't know, on the weekend we might have 10 weddings, we might have a convention. I mean, it was just insane. The amount of, and how we did it. We had no computer. You know, I mean, everything was by hand. We had a catering meeting every day. We tell us, okay, do you have a party for 400 outside, and you have a party for 300 inside, and you have a small party for 20, and you have this, and you have that, and you'd be like, well, you know, you have to remember, because we had to order the food. We had two people, that's all they did for us, is make sure we had the food coming, you know. Like one time, I forgot to order chicken for 400 people.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I found out at 8 in the morning for noon. You know, we rented an ambulance, I'm not kidding you, on the 405 to put the chicken in the chicken, and it came all the way down to us. I mean, yeah, because the food prepper, they will do that. I mean, if you spend, you know, $500,000 buying chicken a year, you know, they found a way to get you the chicken. You know, nobody's going to check what's in the ambulance, you know. But it was a chicken for us, you know. We made that day. It was like, wow, that's a little bit close by, you know. And then I became chef. I have a story to tell you about that. Then I became chef in a famous restaurant which called the Dining Room, which was, everybody has to be dressed up, you have to have a tie. I mean, we had a pianist, and everything was so lovely, and we had a private room, and you know. And I worked at night, and it was very stressful because you had all those people that expect the best all the time. And it was very pressure for me to work there, you know. But years later, it's a funny story about the dining room, because that dining room was always rented, you know, to businessmen with briefcase. And but I never paid attention, you know, I was there, you know, and a lot of the wait staff were on drugs, you know. At the time, cocaine was in the 80s. The whole world was in cocaine. It was about, when I opened Caroline's Cuisine, one night I had a guy at the bar, we were talking, and he was telling me he worked for the DEA in Kremlin, you know. At the time they had like 40 people working at the DEA, because all the drugs in America were coming from Miami. They didn't go on 70, they go on 40, you know. I didn't know, he was telling me that. And I was telling him about the Ritz-Carlton, and he said, wait a minute, which Ritz-Carlton? I said, well, the Ritz in Laguna. He said, oh, he said, that dining room was famous for the drug dealer. I never knew that.
Briefcases, that's what the guys.
Well, there was money. There was not the drug. There was money.
Wow.
I realized that. I was so naive, you know. I didn't realize, why do we have so many business people coming in, you know? That's interesting how, you know, you don't think about a story like that. Interesting people I met when I was at dining room. Barbara Streisand, she was very pleasant. She lived right there with the bluff, you know, with houses. We had Michael Jackson. A friend of mine was his private chef because he would not eat our food. But he would sleep with a tent and a monkey with the oxygen. I got a ticket to go see a show. It was interesting. Mike Tyson, remember Mike Tyson? One of my cooks tried to pick up his wife. By the pool. We always have the story, you know, what happened at the Ritz, you know, because it was like, you know, it was a place to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not anymore. It's not anymore what the Ritz-Carlton used to be, but it used to be a 5-star, 5-diamond hotel. I mean, I don't know if some of you have been there. It's not in Laguna anymore. It's in Dana Point. The city moved, but it's still a very beautiful hotel, you know. And I have fun memory of it. But I wanted to have my own hotel. So I had reached, after I reached the dining room, private room, they finally said to me, okay, you're going to be an executive too. So I became number 2 of the entire kitchen. And I did that for about a year, and then they promoted me to the next slide. I went to the Ritz-Carlton in Boston because I had to work at the Savoy. I don't know if you know Boston, some of you here have been to Boston. The Ritz-Carlton Hotel was in the left, and on the right it was Ritz-Carlton Residence. You know, the Ritz-Carlton company has started to do that. After they seen that, they were building a hotel with private residence on the side. And you had all the amenities from the hotel, meaning that if you want a full dinner, they bring it to you. If you want to use their gym, you could use it, but you pay a lot of dues to do that. So that's the time where I met the famous Julia Child, you know. Of course, Julia was an interesting person. She spoke French. She had a house in Valoris, which is about 50 miles from my father's house. And she loved to come and see me, because, you know, she liked to speak French. So, you know, it'd be like every week or every other week, I would see Julia. She would come to the dining room, and she would come to the cafe downstairs, and she'd ask for me, and I'd go sit down with her, you know. She likes white wine. So, so we had a glass of white wine, and, you know, you see the movie Julia and Julia?
Yes.
Well, she came to dinner at my house.
Oh.
So that was kind of fun. I cooked with her, with Caroline. It was an interesting evening. She was already in the 80s. She had a chauffeur. Paul, her husband, was already in a house, you know. I don't know, some of you have seen Julia Child. I think it was on Netflix, wasn't it? HBO. Have you seen it? It was pretty good.
Really?
It was really good, you know. And the Ritz-Carlton was the hotel that in 1960, it's the hotel that lent to her all the equipment to do the cooking show. I don't know if you remember, but she arrived and makes an omelette in front of everybody, and the guy said, "What are you doing here?" You know, and that was the first cooking show ever in America. And she was a very, very big legend. I mean, if we were doing a fundraiser or we were doing anything to, of course, do a public relation for the Ritz-Carlton or something, if you bring Julia Child, you bring money. People will come in and you have silent auction, or you do whatever you do. You know, it was a very interesting relationship I had with her. I liked her a lot, you know. And she was a fan of the food, you know. Another person that I was not too fond of was Ted Kennedy, because he was there every morning for breakfast, Monday to Friday. He's not that friendly. But he was always there, every day. Every day he had breakfast at the Ritz-Carlton Cafe, you know, every morning. Interesting character. But that was Boston. Boston was really, and the food in Boston, you know, again, they have more tradition, and, you know, not unless in the Boston cream pie, but the clam chowder and all the things, all the food that you think about Boston, it was very interesting. The food we were doing, and, you know, in fact, I was part of the team. I was part of the team that went to Ireland to do a week of food in Dublin for the Ritz-Carlton. We were crossing chefs, so the Irish chef would come to my place for a week, and I would go to Ireland. So I ended up going to Ireland. I arrived there with two guys, two American and me, and we arrived at 6 in the morning. And, you know, we got in the car, and of course the wheels are on the other side, you know. And they were already jet lagging, you know. So we arrived, and the chef is waiting for us, you know, because we were training those weeks when we were, you know, right, we see each other, and then he will go. So he says, welcome, sit down. He says, I have some breakfast for you. I said, great. So he gave us first a shot of Bushmill, which is no coffee. And then he came up with blood sausage and calf brain. And my two friends were like, with the jet lag and looking at the food, you know. I enjoyed it because I was raised on that, but you know, you have to have a taste for that. It was an interesting week. All right, we move into so 1991. I kind of saw the wind turning with the Ritz-Carlton. I started with the Ritz. We had 3 hotels. We had Atlanta, Laguna, and Boston. And by the time I was in Boston, almost 10 years later, we had around 40 hotels already. Things were changing. And I was opening team for the Ritz-Carlton, so they always troubleshoot me to go somewhere, either to fight the union in Hawaii or be in Philadelphia or with the team still, because I was part of the executive management. So, you know, not something I really enjoyed doing. I wanted to cook more than anything else. But I felt like maybe it was time, I was 32, it was time to do something on my own. I don't know. I mean, you know those corporations, you know how you feel them, that someday you say the wind turns, somebody else is the new CEO or CFO or whatever, and then suddenly they cut out the staff. you know, we're going to do more, better, faster, for less. That's what they used to tell us all the time. More, better, faster, for less. You know, after a year, after 7 years, I said, maybe I should do more, better, faster for me. Not for less. So in 1981, I was married to Caroline, and we came to Grand Lake, you know, just by accident. I was driving to Estes Park and came up through the Rocky Mountain National Park. I ended up camping where West is, you know, never summer. Windy River. I was camping in Windy River. And, you know, we were having coffee at the Chocolate that morning, you know, the famous Chocolate. Remember that? That was the best breakfast place ever. I love the Chocolate. I don't know if you guys remember, but they used to smoke under the hood. Yes. It was legal then. It was legal. But anyway, nevertheless, we were reading the Denver Post when we saw something advertising a restaurant for Leeds at Soda Spring Ranch. So we called the owner and we met with Jerry Pierce, and he showed us the restaurant, and I was like, oh, that should be a good thing to do. And I was like, But I was supposed to go to Spain to open the hotel for the Olympics, you know. I had learned Spanish, and I was supposed to move to Barcelona in '92, so that was '91. So they were moving me from Boston, and I was like, you know, and I said, do I want to go to Spain? And I'd love to be here, you know. And also I wanted to be paid in dollar, not in at the time, I forgot it was pesetas. They didn't have the euro, so the money at the time was pesetas. I was like, I'm not going to do that. So finally I just make a move. I quit the Ritz. I went back for a month, give them a month's notice. They all cried the blues. They said, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I said, yeah, watch me, I'm going to do it. And I became a US citizen at the time. I was 1991.
Great.
And then that's when we opened Caroline's Cuisine. I was living right across on one of the ranch clubs. There was the same owner, I don't know if you remember, Mel Huddleston. He was a plumber in Denver, he used to own this. And it was a mess over there because the clubhouse was owned by him, it was rented by the HOA, I was renting the restaurant. We were lucky, we had one phone line there. Because at the time, there was no phone line in Grand Lake. I don't know if you knew that. For the people that complain about the Wi-Fi being slow today, let me tell you, I had a party line with 4 people.
Wow.
And everybody knew who I was. You could hear some crazy conversations. You know. And when I wanted to call France, I had to dial 0, it would go in Grammy, and they would dial the number for me. People don't realize that. I mean, we had the switchboard in Grammy.
And that was in 91.
In 91, it's not that far away. The switchboard was right one street behind Granby, but you had those people working all day long.
I know where the building is.
You know where the building is.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a different world.
Yeah.
And it's funny because at the time in 91, I already had a cell phone. Well, it was a bag phone like that, you know. Because in Boston, I used it. It was $1 a minute
Oh, wow.
for a cell phone. Think
Wow.
about it. You talk really fast. You'd be like, you know, it was so expensive. But then I realized when I came here, my cell phone was working here too.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like crazy. Talk about now you see everything on the cell phone. But at the time, the communication, the only thing we had to advertise ourselves, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have computer, we print ourselves. You know, in 91, I think in 92, I got the first fax. The first fax machine. And that was very important because you could do things with the fax. Remember, you know, receive and stuff like that. It was an interesting start because we brought to Grand Lake some food that people didn't have in Grand Lake before. You know, we brought some of French cuisine, a little bit of Italian food. We tried to work with, at the time it was Shamrock, to get some good product and stuff like that. I mean, remember that was the time we didn't have City Market either. I mean, if you run out of something, I mean, Granby, what was the name of that store?
Mr. Ed's.
Mr. Ed?
Yeah, Mr. Ed's.
Yeah.
No, but where the Ace are wearing.
In Granby.
Yeah.
Where Ace was.
It was Mr. X.
What was it? What
That
was it
was
with
my
Ace
dad.
are wearing?
That's right where Ace Hardware.
Yeah, Mr. Ed's, and then was later something else, but we all know it as Mr. Ed's, right?
The Grand County Market.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to do rotisserie chicken in front. Remember that? I like that store. But they didn't have a lot of stuff that could, I mean, some, and some we had to go to Denver. But it's interesting, when we opened in October, we were busy right away, which is strange. And if you think about it, because all the restaurants usually in October, that's when they go down.
Oh,
you know?
sure.
And we started getting busy, and we did very well at the time. I mean, you know, we tried to introduce, I think it was Wednesday night. We did international night every Wednesday. So some Wednesday we would do Korean food, some other Wednesday Italian. We had different food like that. And that works for a while. You know, the restaurant business, unfortunately, some of you, Bob, can tell you, has been there, done it. The restaurant business goes like this, you know, and then it comes back, and then, you know, it's very hard once you have a restaurant to keep it always like this, you know. Biggest problem is the staff and find people in the product, you know, the people, the product, the staff. But it was an interesting time, you know. We almost lost it 2 or 3 times financially. I don't know how we made it. And it was a learning things. It's one thing to work for a corporation where, first of all, you know your paycheck is coming all the time. But the other thing is you have to survive on your own business. And so we had to learn through that. How do we do that? I mean, how do we advertise? Only advertising we could do is either we made a small poster or we put it on the newspaper. The newspaper was very good at the time, the Sky News, you know. They were pretty good to have stuff on the calendar, and they still do today, but at the time that was the only place, you know, beside the wood on it. Remember the wood on it?
Oh, yeah.
We don't have that anymore. I mean, we used to know who's in jail, who's not in jail. You know, that was the first thing when we get the newspaper on Thursday. We were like, oh, he's in jail? You know what I'm saying? But time have changed. It's not anymore what, you know, it used to be. And that's when I started meeting a lot of people. I started definitely, you know, meeting so many people and so many different people, you know, traveling, and then the weather in like the summer, the brutal winter we used to have in the 90s. We don't have those anymore like that. Very easy, we used to have 30 below, 40 below. I mean, I remember trucks coming in with Shamrock with a heating truck and all the letters be frozen. You know, and then people would say, I don't understand, you don't have any letters. Well, what do you want me to do? You know, I mean, you couldn't get, I mean, it was difficult at some time, you know. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen cold weather. I remember being at a restaurant, many nights people couldn't start their car, or, you know, when I get in the morning, they were stuck, you know. All of those days are, you know, we don't see that because I think the weather definitely is different. You know? We have different seasons now. But it was beautiful. I learned how to snowmobile then. I learned how to go ice fishing, which I didn't care too much for it. and I think it was a good lifestyle. You know? That was me. I think you were, Susie, I think you were there that night. That's where we used to do those big dinners.
Oh, the wine dinners.
The wine dinner.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
Oh my God. We used to do like $50 at the time. It was money.
Yeah.
$50, as much as you could drink and eat. Yeah.
You lost your money.
Yeah, but it was a good promotion. It was a good promotion. We did that for several years. You know.
It was a different wine with each course.
Yeah, it was different one with each course.
Yeah.
I had people even came with an RV.
And what was his name? The wine rep?
Ralph?
Oh,
Yeah.
Ralph.
Oh, yeah. Ralph.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ralph was awesome.
Yeah. He was a character.
Yeah, it was.
Some of the food, you know, that, you know, food comes and goes, you know. You have vegetarian dish on the right, you know. You have, of course, the chocolate mousse, you know. And then on the left, a little bit different. It's like a caprese salad with tomato mozzarella, but I use beets, you know, which is pretty good too. And also, I have made the caprese with a Palisade peach. So think about next summer when you get those big peach You know, they're very good with salt and pepper on it. I mean, in Italy, they eat the peach with pepper on it and olive oil, you know. I mean, it's like tomato, it's a fruit, I mean, you know, so just to give you an idea. Well, here you have the famous Bob Scott. She was supposed to and then Alan passed away several years ago. And that was me in the kitchen. You know, we had quite a crew there. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And that's Jacob Goodfellow.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Jacob Goodfellow.
From Grand Escape.
Yeah, with Bob.
Right.
Susie, look at you. With Sue Sheriff.
Sue Sheriff, yeah.
Passed away here. Regina Fowler, that ran my office, the real estate office.
Play a little piano?
Huh?
Little piano?
Huh?
Little piano?
Yeah. And then some of the food. I used to do my own smoked salmon. I had a smoked salmon company. I mean, I did pretty well. I went to New York to get my license with FDA. And then I had Jack Atkin build me a big smoker. And at one time I was doing like about 100 pounds every week because I was selling to all the hotel in Denver. You know. I was doing pretty well, but I had a product that was natural and expensive. Because I used to get all my salmon from the Pacific, you know, fresh. I used to cure it, salt and sugar for 2 days. Then I used to wash it up. Then I used to smoke it for 6 hours at 90 degrees, you know, and that's it. But it was the cold, what do you call that? The cold Scottish salmon. Not everybody liked that. I mean, most people like the hot smoke. But this one, it was the cold smoke you could slice very thin, you know. The problem I had at a certain point is, you know, the Chinese start selling smoked salmon for half the price. So, you know what I'm saying? The quality wasn't there, but again, the product I had was, you know, I finally, you know, and it's very difficult to get an FDA license because I had to certify with the FDA. They came in and they spent 2 days with me, that the place was safe, that the smoker was locked. You know, they always think bioterrorism or somebody would come and do something to the food. So we had to have in place a lot of things, and they will come and inspect you and make sure that you're following all that has to be done. And then the problem with the product, like I was doing, you only had a shelf life 30 days. I didn't freeze it. I didn't, you know, I didn't vacuum pack because you can vacuum pack also. See, like if you go to City Market, all their meat is not vacuum packed because you can't. You have to have a special license to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I could not. I could vacuum pack and freeze it, but I could not vacuum pack like that. You know. So, we're I don't know the volume. Well, I have some cake here for you, but of course we don't have it. Is the sound on? Huh? We don't have the sound. Oh, that was for you. Susie, that was for you. Susie used to tell me, I'm getting too old for that.
Well, we didn't quite kick quite that high.
I'm sorry I made that for you. With the sound and everything. By the way, every time I come here, the sound system doesn't work. Next time I'm invited, I'm on my own. I don't have a sound system. Maybe it's a town. I don't know.
It's the town.
It's a town.
Yeah, we're that.
But we have had some, you know, I mean, I still remember the biggest, I think you were there, Susie, that night. The biggest came with July 14th. The biggest one we had was with Bob, help me, Betty. What was her name, Betty? She had the house that the government took over. Her name was Betty.
In Rocky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
Oh, Betty did.
Betty did. I never forget. Sue Luton had lent me the tent from the library, and I had a great idea with my father to put the tent over the deck.
Oh, man, the wind?
Do you remember?
wind.
And I had tied up the
Ow.
tent
God.
with the metal chair from the pool.
Oh.
Well, around 7 o'clock, I still remember Betty Dick was looking at me and she says, you know, there is a black cloud over there. I said, usually when they get out there, they come back this way. Out of the blue, I don't know, 20 minutes later, the wind came in and started taking the tent, you know, and Betty was looking at me. I was like, what do I do? And suddenly I see the chair, the table raising 30 feet. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. And then suddenly, whoop, the tent went on the highway.
Wow.
And then it started raining like crazy.
I remember your dad and I grabbing that umbrella and holding on to it, trying to pull it down.
I mean, I was there. I looked at it, I was there. I need a shot of it.
Oh, yeah.
And we never, ever had anybody coming in a restaurant in a wheelchair on the deck. We had somebody on the wheelchair on the deck, on the rain, that we had to move with other people inside.
Oh, everybody.
But everybody was fine. They're like, we are so sorry, but those people are going to sing with you.
Right.
They were- the problem at the end of the day, when you don't know who or what, because, you know, when you have a table, you know that table has so much food, and, you know, it was a nightmare to do the bill at the end of the day. But what a night, I still remember that.
Yeah, it was an interesting one.
Some other food, in France, we were just in France, my father loved blossom. My father is 92, by the way, I'm going to show you a picture of him. Those are the zucchini blossom. So what I did there, I did a mousse of white fish, like a mousse with egg white and cream. Then I fill it up and I steam them lightly and serve with the saffron sauce, you know. On the right side again, you have the smoked salmon with the chives. Oh, well, in 2011, I rented a restaurant to the brewery. Well, that was another story. And I decided to move to Denver. So I became the chef at the Warwick, you know, which, it was a nice hotel, you know, and I had the experience to do that. But when I saw that slide, I said, I get to show it, because when everybody thinks about an executive chef, it's like what my friend thinks I'm doing, you know, what my mom thinks I'm doing, what society think I do, what customer think I do, what I think I do, what actually I was doing. You know, I was in a cubicle office all day long on a computer, trying to, you know, make it better, faster, for less again. And I found myself in the same, you know, working for corporations again that were like pounding me down, you know. But the good things, when I was there, a lot of people from Grand Lake used to come and see me, and it was not like every week I would have people from Grand Lake coming and having dinner at the Warwick. It was a good experience because I was working, I was in my 50s at the time, and I was working with young people. I didn't know anything about computers. So they taught me a lot, which was good, because everything we used to do was, you know, from the time I was at the Ritz-Carlton on paper, we were now on computers. So, you know, I had to learn that. It was pretty good, you know. And, well, you see me with that big medal. I'm on that side. So I work for Escoffier. I don't know if you know Escoffier, but Escoffier was a business partner of César Ritz. They both opened the Ritz and all this story. Escoffier remained as one of the most interesting, and I would say famous chef in the world. He was French. He was born in Nice. He's the one that brought women to the table. So what he did is like, hotels starting to have a restaurant, and people were staying in a hotel, and then women would dress up and go for dinner. And he was a womanizer too. So everything you have from Escoffier is like the toast melba, the peach melba, you know, everything had a woman name. A lot of his cuisine and so his basic cookbook, not cookbook, but a book that tells you what goes where and what sauce, at 75 or 100 recipes on it. So when I work at the Savoy in London, I forgot to tell you that, it's like a little Bible like that I have at home. And so when we come to work every week, they change the menu. So the only way we will know how to do the menu is to read the Bible. Because then we will know exactly, it's called a repertory. And they had in all these different languages. Unfortunately, all of that classical cuisine is not anymore what it used to be. I mean, things have changed, you know. And then, you know, when you look at the cuisine from this bird called ortolan and stuff, they don't exist anymore. From the late 1800s to today, you don't have the same quality of fish, or you don't have the fish anymore, or you don't have some of the birds don't exist anymore, you know. They used to eat, at the time of Escoffier, and I remember at the Savoy, they used to eat turtle, you know. Now we think about eating turtles. But they used to kill the turtle and make a consommé of turtle, you know, which, you know, it would take days to do that. So on the back, sorry, the picture I made it too big. On the back, the gentleman, that's Michel Escoffier, is a great-grandson of Escoffier. He has two culinary schools. He has one in Austin and one in Boulder. So I was there for 2 years. They kind of wanted me because, you know, I was French. And they wanted a French teacher in the school because the school is from Escoffier. I liked it. I didn't like the politics of the school. Since that day, I have so much respect for school teacher because, you know, I never knew. The problem with them is that it was money, money, money. So basically what we were doing is retraining people like came back from the military. You know, they get free education until they found what they want to do really. So we had maybe 50% of the students we had people in their 20s and 30s, you know. But it was very, some of the students were very interested in cooking. Some of them, they were paid by the government, they didn't care. They was just there because they wanted to be there. But the bottom line, everybody had to graduate, which I didn't like that. You know, because at the end of the day, the school needs to make money. Now, if you remember all those big culinary schools, the CIA, you know, Culinary Institute of America, the Johnson and Wales, most of them, the CIA is still there, but some of them went out of business because they would keep telling the young people, say, when you get out, you make $100,000 a year. They didn't make that. They were making $10 an hour. You know, and so they start suing the school. So that's why you have Johnson and Wales is gone, and you know, I think in Denver, the only one in Boulder is Escoffier is the only one remaining. And when I was there, it was for 9 months, it was $29,000. But the problem I had for me, you know, I could have a class of 8 to 12 that was perfect. But sometimes they give me a class of 22. I didn't know. I mean, I was like, you cannot keep an eye or two eyes on all those people.
Did you have to deal with their parents too?
No, I didn't have to deal with the parents. No, I didn't deal with the parents. But you know, we had 45 minutes. We explained mostly I did French food. We explained the food. We tell them what's going on. You know, and then we all go in the kitchen, and then you know everybody has a certain job. We decide who's going to do this, who's going to do that, and then you have 5 hours to build a meal together, you know, from scratch, from nothing, to make the meal. And then everybody sit down and eat, and then everybody clean, because they had, each kitchen, we had 12 of them, each kitchen were running from 6 in the morning to midnight. So each kitchen had 3 classes a day. So you had to move on really fast for the next one, because the next one would come in and then, you know, move to the next one. It was a little bit challenging. Let's put it that way. But I kind of like to teach cooking, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but you have to have a lot of passion to be a chef instructor. You know, I mean, well, a lot of passion to be a school teacher. I mean, you know, you have to be passionate about it. I had a passion, but not at the point where, you know, do I really want to do that? So I did that for 2 years. And then I came back to Grand Lake. So I don't have much about Grand Lake in 2015. Well, I had the Stillwater Grill, which I did not have the Restaurant Caroline. I tried to reduplicate what I was doing with Caroline, and I tried to make it a little bit different. I tried to bring a pizza oven, and you know, the food changed. You know, what was good 5 years before or 10 years before, it's not good today. People don't eat the same thing. Now, I remember the days, and Susie, Jim, and Donna, all those people that used to know the restaurant, people used to come and they had an appetizer, they had soup or salad, they had a main course, and maybe they had dessert. People don't do that anymore. This is over. They might share a plate, they might do a little bit of this, but I used to serve filet mignon with lobster, and no, people have changed. They might do it once in a while, but the food by itself of what people eat is completely different. And now you have what they call the fusion of everything. So, you have some fusion French, and you have some Italian. And I don't know when the Mexican met the Chinese, but for me, it's a total confusion. It's not a fusion, it's a confusion. Because you reach a point where if you are going to do what really the traditional recipe is and stuff like that, it's fine. But if you're not doing that, then it's something different. And I agree that food also change, recipe change, taste change. I don't have the same, at 68 years old, I do not have the same taste of food that I had when I was 20 years old. And I'm sure all of you around here are the same. You probably, and then also, for health reason, people eat, a little bit on the light side now, So I came back. I did still what I did for 5 years. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a huge issue trying to find staff. I couldn't find the staff I had, because they all went and did something else. I couldn't find the staff. The product was, you get what you get. I had to go to Denver maybe once a week and get stuff. The biggest things that happened is the COVID, The COVID, I was closed 3 months. I went through, the government gave me $65,000. I think I used that in July and August, just to keep the staff. The reason was to keep the staff. But I had one table at the 4. In June, I was opening, I had one table at the 4, and I think in July I had 2 at the 4. And it was like, we were wearing the mask, we were trying to tell people scream at us, I'm not coming if I have to wear a mask. Arguing with people. I didn't make the rule. I was following what the rule was supposed to be, But anyway, after that, the grand coup we had was a fire here, The fire was, I was praying for the restaurant to burn. But that didn't happen. So, I think I was like everybody else in this room that was there at the time. I was so frazzled. I was in Denver and I was like, rumor was the lodge is gone and half the town is gone. And I'm like, oh, maybe the restaurant is gone. No, I didn't do that. But, I was like, maybe it's a sign not to reopen, And when I went with my insurance, because I lost all the freezer, all the food, everything went bad. I think I had over $15,000. I said all the invoices. They gave me $2,000. You know why insurance are. So I was like, you know what? That's another reason maybe. And then I never reopened the restaurant after that. And I think I was done. It was like maybe I need to do something else. I started real estate, years ago in the 90s, and I just came back here and did some real estate and, tried to help who I could help. I did a lot of cooking class with the Mountain Family Center. I did some with Dee Moulinex. Where is Dee? She's over there. I'm going to talk about her later. I've been working with the community a little bit more, what else to do,
A TV show.
A TV show. So this is my father's place in the summer. Summer for him is like from end of March until end of November, okay? This is in Nice. You can see the drapes coming down. You see Donna with my father's dog, my father's wife, and me in the back. This is what life is in France or in Italy. You sit at the table for hours, talk, and enjoy, It's the way it goes. He loves that. My dad loves. He's 92. He's still doing okay. You know?
Right.
He's still doing okay.
You moved there when you were, what, 6 or 7? How old were you when you moved?
When I moved,
Yeah, to this house.
oh, I was 6 years old.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
I moved to that house, I was 6 years old.
And his dad's still there, yeah.
Yeah, he has a vine. He has a beautiful garden on the back. He has he has lemon that produce 4 times a year. You know, it's semi-tropical, so he gets a lot of them. You know, but it's in the winter. I mean, if you go January, February, you know, during the day it might be 50. You know, it's a little bit cool, but it's never cold like here. You know, it doesn't freeze. It barely goes down to about 34 and 35. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about my place in Italy a little bit. So, now to show you how close I am, this is Monaco right here.
All right.
That's
So,
what?
Monaco, Monte Carlo, Monaco. So Monaco bought the seaport here because they have too many yachts. So my father had a cousin in Italy that had no kid, and in France we have something, I don't know here if it exists, maybe one of those. It's called a viager. The viager, it's like, if somebody is, a good story about that. If somebody is like 70, 80 years old, you go to the lawyer and you draw a contract. And so the younger you are, when you sell your house in viager, the less money you make. Right? So if your house worth $300,000, you're probably going to put $30,000 down, and then you pay $500 a month until the person dies. But the paperwork is already done. And so, and then more the person is older, like 90 years old, then you might pay, you know, 3 times down, 4 times that, a down payment of about 50, 60,000, and pay maybe $1,500 a month. However, there's a lady that built all the art, and you can Google her. Madame Clément lived to be 119 years old. She killed the 4 people that bought her house died before her. Yeah. She smoked a cigarette every day and drank a glass of port every day. Madame Clément, if you read Clément, you Google her, you see the story. They did a movie about her. Interesting personage. But anyway, she survived all the time. So I got this house through the family. He didn't have any kids. He was in his 80s. He wanted just a little bit of money. I paid him a down payment. Every month I gave him money. And then in 2000 he died and I ended up having the house. So that's the beach. I took that picture in August.
And it's very close to the beach. He just walks down to the
This is my place.
Yeah.
I'm on the other side of the hill, but the sea is over there, so you can see how old the buildings are. To give you an idea, you see a little bit the gutter coming out of the house. Because remember, those houses are 300 to 400 years old, right? And they had no sewer. I mean, in front on my other side of the street, it's only wide like this, okay? And he has a trench. So in the morning, they used to put a sewer in the trench. So if you live down the street, it was not a good idea. But that's because it's a medieval town. I mean, they didn't have any other way. So to do that to my house, you see out of my house the plumbing coming out on the outside. And the water coming also, because they didn't have water either. Because you had all the fountain around the town. We found out when I was there with Ian, we found out that the Roman 2,000 years ago had made a water line that was coming from at least 6 or 7 miles from another river. They didn't like that river, but they brought it as level all the way to the old town to make all the fountain run. How did they know the elevation? How did they know that the water would flow so well from one side to the other? We still can't explain that. We don't know. We really don't know. You know? There is a lot of little things about the town because it used to be called the Pompeii of the North. So Julius Caesar loved to come there, and he crossed the Alps with the elephant from there, from Africa. They brought the elephant and he crossed completely the Alps to the other side, to almost Germany. And then you have the big monument in that called the August Monument that remained there from the Roman from 2,000 years ago. That's my sister, this is Donna, this is my house. I redone all the inside. So everything inside, I have new window, new electric, new water line, everything is brand new. Air conditioning in every room, things like that. It's getting hot there too. That's what the street looks like. That's my entrance, that's my house, that's the entrance. And I have my Madonna right there, she protects me. Every house has a Virgin Mary, you know, protect you. But anyway, and some of the house, they put that to hold the house, you know. This house here, my neighbor's David, you see that part of the house is missing? Between the two.
Yeah.
In 1945, the bomb dropped off. And they lost one floor of the house. He keeps talking to me, he's going to rebuild. I mean, his father was in hopefully. Here is what I see the arch arm, you know. And you see what I was talking about, the gutter? They're not gutter that bring the water from the roof, they gutter from the sewer. But you have, this is very old, the arch like that, those are very, very old. That's a cousin of my cousin, she has a little store. She's only like maybe 50 yards from me. So I go there once in a while and buy what I need from the house. It's right there, because you have to carry, you cannot park there, there's no parking. So you have to carry everything in, everything out, you know.
And then the Nero movie.
Oh, yeah.
Go back.
So there's a movie that just came up on Netflix. It's called Hero. If you want to watch it, it's very good. And some of the movie has been filmed in Ventimiglia.
And was this one of the scenes?
Huh?
Was this in one
No,
of the
it's
scenes?
the scene of the fountain on the main street.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
Portuguese.
So what year was your home built?
It's probably 300 years, maybe.
Okay, okay.
Something like that, because down from my house there is a garden, and then you have the fortification. Because if they were invaded, there is 3 or 4 doors. You know, they have, you know, cholera, pest, whatever. They can close the city completely. Don't let any. If you go out, you never could come back. But they had garden. They could grow their own vegetable. They have wheat, and they have everything to survive for a certain time. Because you can see all those little, you can see really on that street, but all those little doors were stores at the time. You know, so the people who live in the country, they will come there. You might have, like my place was a bakery. By accident, I found out a shaft like that, you know, that goes all the way to the top, and they used to sell bread down there. You know, but I didn't know that until, you know, some of the wall came down outside, and I was like, oh, it was hollow, so I saw it's big like that. So summer used to be like a shoemaker, you had to have a bakery, you had all kinds of different little business in the Middle Age, you know.
And this is the street, so you have to park way far away
Oh, yeah.
and walk to the homes.
Yeah, and some of the house sometimes connected, meaning that one married the other one, and so they build between the two houses, you know. You know what I'm saying? And it look like it's going to fall on you when you walk. I'm surprised, you know. It looked like it's so random. When I take people to my house, and they're like, really? That's what they call the port of Nice. That's where they did the movie. You know, Nero, part of the
Okay,
movie.
yeah.
But you can see those big doors used to lock completely. They used to lock the city completely. But again, you see how all the utilities, even the cable, everything is outside. Because, you know, they couldn't bring it in. It was built. There is Donna. And so my house is right here. It's this one here. Next to the yellow one on top. They're redoing all the face of the building, but it takes for so long because it's all historical society. I mean, you have to go to the town, and you have to talk to somebody in Genoa. I mean, it's just Italy is complicated, the bureaucracy, but I mean, slowly by slowly, that was what, 2 or 3 years ago. There is more building now that's being redone. You know? And if you really look on the side of that mountain on the right, that's France already. You know, we're only 5 miles from France. The right on the border. That's a view from my house. See how they're starting redoing the face, but some of the faces of the building. I took that picture. That was a full moon. I have 4 churches next to me, so at 7:30 in the morning, you better wake up.
Here.
All the bells are going on, and then they go on every quarter of the hour, and then a half hour. Oh yeah. They tell you, you know, it's like it used to be. People used to live with a, you know. Some of the old fountain, you know. Those were very important because people had no water at home. Right. So basically, you had to go to the street and get a bucket of fresh water if you wanted water. A lot of that. That's a seaport, you know. So this is what it is a rainy day that day. You have a lot of beach. From there, I'm about 5-minute walk, 6-minute walk.
Which yacht is yours?
Yeah.
I wish. So talking about yacht, we were in Beaulieu, where I'll tell you the real estate. We do in Monaco and Beaulieu, and we saw that yacht. I was with my cousin, as a very small sailboat, and we saw that yacht. And we're like, oh my God, how big is that yacht? It was 500 yards. Yes. I know. He had 101 people working. Wow. So if you see the name, you Google it, he tell you all the story. There was a guy from Ukraine that owned that. You know, I don't know what to do about that, but he had a helicopter on top, and you have other, you know, Bill Gates and all. They're all there, all these people. So they moved from one boat to the other for dinner or drink in the helicopter. I looked at that. I was. I know. When I was a kid, we never had board. We never had stuff like that. You know. Oh, that was Scott took a picture of the water. You know. The water is very, very clear. You know. And it's very. And the water when I was there was about 80 degrees. It was pretty warm. Well, here is Lee Woolley next. And Rick, where is Lee? She's right there. So that's another thing that I take care of, and I work with Lee. We raise money for the life jacket. You know, we make sure, and Lee, maybe you want to say something about it, but you're the one that take care of everybody to have a life jacket to go on the lake.
Yeah, we have 5 stations. They get used continually, supported by the community and donations, and we know we're saving lives.
Indeed.
You have a boat now too, right?
And we have yes, it's the Headwaters Water Authority, which we have in Grand County now, has just ordered a boat for the first time ever in Grand County. So we will have a search and rescue boat that belongs to us, and we should be getting it towards maybe the end of next summer, but it will be, it's a gift. It's such a gift. Yeah, we're going to have a boat.
Well, thank you, Lee.
Thank you, JC.
Thank you.
Thank JC, he's done a lot of fundraising for us, and he's part of our committee as well, so he sits on the board. Yes, JC.
I think we cooking class at our house, you know, and then all the money goes to for the life jacket, so it's a good thing. So. I think that's it. No, I have Steve Comey. Because Steve was a very good friend of mine. I don't know if some of you, I'm sure most of you knew him. He used to come to the restaurant all the time. He used to play at the restaurant. He was a figure of the restaurant and the community.